Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas Remarks with your host, Joe Staszak. My man right there, Steve Kallas. Steve, I'm doing my best Pat McAfee, with the tank top today. He's blowing up, so I flip flops. So I'm looking forward to the show. We'll get right into week 4 coming up. That would mean that after this weekend, the season is 25% in the books. I don't like to hear that, obviously. Sans playoffs. So the poor man's Matt Ryan played pretty well the other night in Green Bay. I like Jared Goff, and his first pass of the game was a pick, led to 3 points by Green Bay. After that, they destroyed, and I mean destroyed, blew him off the ball, did whatever they wanted to do to the Green Bay Packers. I'm not going to fault, Love, can't even remember his first name. Justin Love, because so many other things went wrong, but Detroit looked pretty strong. Any chance? I mean, you hear so much about the Eagles in the NFC title game, the Niners, the Cowboys. Detroit's been pretty good. They won in KC. They did lose a tough game after that to Seattle, but a strong showing in Lambeau Field the other night. What did you think?
I think they're taking their cues from Campbell, who's a whack job but a good coach.
Yep, definitely a whack job, but they seem to like him. Hey, they got rid of DeAndre Swift. David Montgomery has 3 touchdowns on the ground. They ran all over them.
Well, I don't think running backs are interchangeable, but maybe I'm wrong. And I think they're real good, and it's a change in the power structure. Aaron Rodgers is with the Jets, and now he's with nobody. And as good as Love might become, he's not Aaron Rodgers and won't be for a while.
Technically, he's a Jet, I guess.
Well, I think the Lions. I think the Lions are for real. I don't quite put them up there with the 49ers.
They're a notch under myself. But again, it's only week 3. You get better as you go along.
Correct. And I think they're very good. I think the Lions are good.
I thought they sent a message last
game
of the season. They knocked Green Bay out. They were trying to get in. They won in Green Bay. Did Detroit, but some other things happened where they didn't get in. But I thought that was a stepping stone.
Exactly right. And now they're just stepping off of that this year. They're good. They're a playoff team.
Yeah, very impressive. I think the most intriguing game, and not breaking any news here on the docket this weekend, is Miami's in Buffalo. And Buffalo's played very well since the Jets game when they were awful. And Josh... I'm having trouble. Thank you. I have trouble with names today. Turned the ball over 4 times in that game. Destroyed the Commanders last weekend. And of course, we know that Miami dropped 70 on Denver. 2.5 point dogs this weekend. What are your thoughts? In Miami, remember the playoff game when they had a 3rd string quarterback. They almost beat the Bills last year in a playoff game.
Tough game for me to pick. If you're going to pick, it would probably be Miami off of that, but Buffalo has come back the last 2 weeks after the Jet debacle. And, but, Poyer's not playing, and he's a big-time DB for them. So I think that's going to hurt the Bills a lot. But I think it's a pass game. It's in Buffalo. Buffalo looks like Buffalo now after, again, laying an egg in week 1. So to me, it's a toss-up. I wouldn't pick that game myself.
Believe it or not, that's one of my picks. We'll have to stick around to see, but Josh Allen has done a very nice job reining in the turnover since the opening night with the Jets. And Miami, Jaden Waddle's been hurt, and I know Tyreek Hill seems like the fastest guy in the galaxy, but they've been running the ball as well. I mean, Miami and Mike McDaniels, I think he's a fascinating guy because you look at him. When they hired him, I'm like, are they tripping? Really? When I saw who was their new head coach, what? Really? That's the guy? He's been phenomenal.
Yep. And by the way, Waddle is back this week. He had
he is back this week.
He had a concussion. Now he's back. They scored 70.
Should be certainly an interesting game. Some other interesting games on the docket. Let's talk Eagles. The joke around here is that they're They're the worst 3-0 team in history. They're getting killed in Philly. There's 3 undefeated teams. We just talked about one, Miami, San Francisco's the other. I think the Eagles, say what you want about them, that I'm certainly okay with 3-0. They haven't been crisp, 1-5 in the red zone in Tampa, but 470 yards to like 100 something. When you looked at the end of the day, they've been pushing people around offensively and defensively. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, I didn't think they'd come around this quickly, but they've been very impactful guys.
We talked about the Eagles a lot. I think it's the sign of a champion that they haven't played well. I thought they played better in game 3 last week, but they haven't played up to the Eagles standard and they're 3-0. So I don't know how you can really complain about that. Although I think you told me last week their schedule gets tougher.
Oh boy,
By
does
the
it.
time their schedule gets tougher, they should be the Eagles. That would be my guess.
I hope so.
And I don't know. I think the 49ers might be better than them, but I don't know anybody else in the NFC who might be better than them. Not the Cowboys after last week, not the Lions. I think right now it's just the Eagles and the 49ers.
What do you think about this? And it's early, after it's only 3 games, but when the coach of the year thing comes around, and I know Sirianni, lost 1 game last year without his starting quarterback until the Super Bowl. He wasn't even in the top 3, but Shane Steichen, 2-1 with the Colts, with a rookie quarterback. And I have to be honest, the way the Cardinals have been playing, they're only 1-2, but I think Jonathan Gannon's done a hell of a job there with what, that's almost like a place where your career goes to die. The Cardinals, the way they run things and the whole Kyler Murray thing and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, they busted up Dallas, should have beaten the Giants, and, they lost in the waning moments to the Commanders. But I think Jonathan Gannon's done a very nice job. What do you think of how the coordinators for the Eagles, former coordinators, have done?
I think they've done great with surprising teams. Who would have thought? I thought Arizona was viewed to be like the worst team in the NFL.
Right.
And they're better than a lot of teams. You don't want to play them right now, seems to me. Why would you want to play them? They should have beaten the Giants. And then, frankly, they almost manhandled Dallas. I understand it was in Arizona. But I think that gives the Patriots a lot of hope this year going down to Dallas, even though they're on the road. Because that Patriots loss to Miami looks like a stellar game now. We talked about it. They had a chance. They were within a score.
Close game.
Right. And they held them, I think, to 25 points or something. That's good now.
Right.
So I think the coordinators are doing great, but you probably knew that they'd be good head coaches. What's surprising is they're doing it with these teams that you really didn't give much of a chance to. But so far, so good. We'll see what happens. But I think the Cardinals will be better when Kyler Murray comes back. I don't know when that's going to be, although Dobbs has been pretty good, right?
He's been tremendous. The story this week is he went into the Arizona. They have it's not a bookstore. It's the pro shop, to get one of his own jerseys for a relative.
Right.
They didn't have a Josh Dobbs jersey.
That's terrible. They should have one now.
Right? I think he's been great. James Conner, I think, has been great. Great story coming over from Pitt. I haven't seen hide nor hair of him in a while. We had an unbelievable day. They are 14-point dogs on the road to the 49ers. Cowboys, again, got decimated. They look like the Cowboys of old, and the way a team, the way that they usually look when they're faced with a big game at the end of the year. Dak throws a bad pick. The defense gives up, bad plays at inopportune time. 10 penalties in the first half. They're a 6.5-point favorite over the Patriots. What do you think of that line? I heard them talking on the radio saying they thought that line was screwy. It should be higher, but it's a Belichick team. I know Mac Jones isn't Tom Brady, but Dallas came back to earth, it appears, and I think that line's about okay.
I don't know how it can be more than that at this point. They lost to Arizona and were just about dominated by Arizona. And again, Arizona is much better than we thought. But you're playing the Bill Belichick defense still. Their defense is one of the 3 or 5 best in the NFL without question. And the offense to me is coming along slowly, but coming along.
Bad, but there have been some inopportune plays. a ball
Wow.
gets picked and run back by Darius Slay. They've had some other bad turnovers, but they've been in games, and I think I think they could come out with a win there. I don't know if they will, but
I think they can. I think the Patriots are going to take a page out of Arizona's book, and they're just going to run it. If Arizona can run over Dallas, then I think the Patriots can run over Dallas. Although Arizona's offensive line is still, Andrews is great, their center, and they're healthy, but I don't think they have a great offensive line. I don't know if Arizona is considered to have a great offensive line, but they have a good one. So I think the Patriots can win outright. I'd be surprised if it was any higher. I thought actually it might go a little lower.
I thought it should be a little lower than that
because it was 6.5 right away, and it never changed. So I think that's the old, I don't want to call it a sucker bet, but if you're on the fence and it's 6.5, well, all they have to do is win by 7, right? That's what you're thinking.
That's always when you think about that, sure. That's
right.
Why so many people lose betting. Oh, that looks. Oh yeah, they can win by 7. Oh, they can win by 10 if it's 9.5.
Right.
And invariably, they lose the game outright. It's like, oh wow.
So I think the Patriots are to be reckoned with. I think they're in the wrong division still. You got to play Miami and Buffalo 4 times. The Jets have fallen off a cliff because Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Not that they're an easy walkover, but they're just not good offensively. I don't know how they're going to score points. They have the weapons, they just don't have the quarterback. And they signed Simeon. They don't want to have somebody who's going to scare Zach Wilson. But if you want to win this year, it seems to me, and you were built to win this year with Aaron Rodgers, you can go get a good quarterback. Matt Ryan said, I have no desire to play for the Jets. He probably saw everybody running for their lives the first few
lives.
And I don't know, Carson Wentz was mentioned, but I don't know where he is. But if you could get your hands on a really good quarterback, I think you're going to have Zach sit, because Zach is sitting next year, no matter what he does this year, if Aaron Rodgers comes back.
That's correct.
So all this, my foot works better and this and that. It's all about what happens when you walk on the field. And what happens when he walks on the field is bad. You can tell me it's partly the offensive line, but it's mostly him. I'm not a Jet fan, but you've seen 2 years and 3 games of this.
I've seen enough.
You and Joe Namath.
Namath has seen enough too. He took some serious shots at Zach Wilson. What's it say about a franchise when you're playing a home game and you're playing a team that just gave up 70 points and you're a 3.5 point underdog? The Broncos coming in 3.5 point favorite at Chicago. That game? Imagine if you're the CBS crew and you get assigned that game. Wow, this company doesn't think too much of me. What of those 2 teams? Which one has the moniker of worst team in the league?
I think I'm going to go with the Bears because they've had too much bad things happen. Fields has not progressed like they thought this was the year for Fields.
Right.
And so far it's not. And whatever you think of Russell Wilson, you can't blame him for last week. He threw for over 300 yards. It's obviously all about the defense if you're giving up 70 to Miami. If I had to pick that game, and I think it's not too close to pick, I think it's too stupid to pick.
Yeah,
that's. I would pick
serious degenerate to play that game.
I would pick Denver because I think the Bears are in deep trouble. And how does the coach keep his job? They've lost 13 games in a row, Joe.
It's unbelievable.
3 this year and the last 10 last year. How? I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. But I go Denver. And Peyton has to be incredibly embarrassed. And I think it's even better. I don't think Hackett said a word.
Well, it's even better. Take the high road. I'm sure he was asked.
Right, but Peyton learned the hard way. The guy's been around forever, won a Super Bowl, him and Drew Brees. But to say what he said at the time we talked about it, I said, why are you saying it?
There's no upside.
Is Joe Namath wrong about Zach Wilson? I don't think he's wrong, but why would you say it? What's the point?
I agree.
Unless you're trying to pressure Saleh to see the light, because he's the only guy who hasn't seen the light. And he's, oh yeah, his footwork is better, and this is better, and that's better, and he's our quarterback. And watch the game film, man. I mean, it's just it's brutal. Now you can tell me it's partly because of the offensive line, but they need a better quarterback, and they got a better quarterback, but he got hurt out for the season.
Right. and they basically planned the whole year around him, which I do not blame.
Exactly.
All right, Steve Kallas, it's not week 6, but you were hot last week, man. 3-0. Let's do some picks.
Yeah, 3-0 last week, but you know my 6-week rule, and this is week 4. I'm going to take, as we talked about, I'm going to take the Patriots and the 6.5. I know they're at Dallas, but I just think after what Arizona did to them on the ground, I think they're going to do a similar thing on the ground, and that's going to make Mac Jones, like all quarterbacks.
Zeke, you think Zeke's going to be fired up for this one?
Zeke is averaging 4.4 yards a carry. He looked great last week. He rushed for 80 yards, and he's got to be up for this. I mean, he's got to want to show him. I think Pollard's better than Zeke now, or at least the Zeke of last year, who was terrible. Zeke was not good last year, but I didn't think Zeke was a Patriot. I didn't think Juju Schuster was a Patriot, but they're Patriots. So what do I know?
How about that? Jalen Reed was a Patriot? My goodness.
I'll take the Patriots plus 6.5 at Dallas. I'm going to take Seattle in the Monday night game, minus 1.5 at the Giants. And I'm going to take the Browns at home. I don't know if Deshaun Watson is playing, but I love that Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's from UCLA. He was, if one player stood out, I know we don't put a lot of anything into preseason, but this kid played great in the preseason. And I think he's confident from UCLA. I think he's confident enough that if he has to play, I think he's going to be okay. So I'm going to take, despite, I wanted to fudge it and say, oh, if Deshaun doesn't play, but I'll take the Browns at home, minus 1.5 over the Ravens, who have so many injuries, but they do have a healthy Lamar. Like Beckham isn't playing again. Bateman isn't playing again. I think they're getting a couple of their linemen back, so that'll make a difference. But I like the Browns have the best defense in football so far, and that's thanks to that old Philly guy, Jim Schwartz. I'm not a Schwartz fan, but he's a great defensive coordinator.
He is.
And they've given up like nothing so far this. I think they've given up 1 touchdown in 3 games, I want to say.
Yeah, he's done a very good job there.
It would probably be better as an under game than as a pick the Browns game, but it is what it is. So that's who I like. Browns, Patriots, and Seattle. How about you?
Well, let's go back to last week. What I had, the Carolina line did not work. What you call the Joe Staszak line did not. I had the Cardinals plus the points. I thought that was just too many for a home team. They won the game outright.
Yeah, they won. Yeah.
I had the Bengals with banged up Joe Burrow. I thought that line was a little goofy. Them being a favorite over the pretty well coached Rams team. I know they're not the Super Bowl Rams, but they eked that one out. They won by 3. They laid 2.5. So 2-1, 7-2 on the year. I'm sure that'll change pretty soon. Week 4, I have mentioned the Dolphins, Bills. I like the Dolphins. I'll take an undefeated team getting points. It's only 2.5. I'd probably pick the winner. Until someone beats them, they've played really well. Tua's been great. He's protected the ball well. Jalen Waddle, you mentioned, is back. Raheem Mostert, they're running the ball well, and the Bills statistically still can't run the ball. So again, that's a little bit of a principal pick and a statistical pick. So I'm going with the Dolphins there. Colts Rams a pick. I thought that line was. I thought the wrong team was favored there, and it was the Colts. They were a 1.5 point favorite. I thought the Rams might be a favorite coming into that. It was going to be close either way. I like what Shane Steichen's done. Anthony Richardson will play. Not that he's been setting the world on fire, but again, I like what Shane Steichen's done. And Pittsburgh statistically, and I'm not talking about wins and losses, but they have not graded out very well. And I know it's the Texans, and one of my rules is you bet bad teams, bad things tend to happen. They did come up huge in Jacksonville last week. I love home dogs. They're a 2.5 point home dog to the Steelers, coming off a big win in Vegas. So I like the Dolphins plus 2.5. I like the Colts at home as a pick over the Rams, and I like the Texans to win again over those Pittsburgh Steelers. Talk a little MLB, the little baseball. Believe it or not, fans of Philly, they already clinched the other night. The Phillies did the top spot in the wild card, but there's a weird situation going on with the Marlins, and the Phillies do not historically play well against them. It doesn't matter what the rosters look like. They don't play well against the Marlins, and the Marlins are used to coming into Citizens Bank Park when there's 30,000 at least. I know it'll be rocking, and I know it's an intimidating place to play in the playoffs. I'd rather take my shot with Arizona, who I think is a better team, but the Marlins are only a half game behind, couple games left, and explain what happened the other night and what's going on with this Marlins potential, game hasn't been a game yet.
The Mets were beating the Marlins after 8 innings, 1-0 in New York. The Marlins get up in the 9th inning. They scored 2 runs, but they're still up. And it was the beginning of these torrential rains we had up here for a day and a half. And they actually called a rain delay at like 9:15 or 9:30 or something. And there was like a more than 3 hour rain delay, but they couldn't play the game. It was horrific up here. So again, in the old days, the rule used to be if you can't finish the game and one team is batted in the top of the 9th, it goes back to the 8th. And in that case, the Marlins would have lost 1-0. They've obviously changed that rule. And now, right now, it's scheduled to play from the top of the 9th on Monday, but only if necessary to decide a playoff berth. And I think it might decide a playoff berth because in the National League, the wild card, as you said, the Phillies are up 6, so they're locked into the first wild card. But for the second wild card, the D-backs are 84 and 76, so they're up a half on the Marlins, who have the third wild card. The Marlins are 83 and 76. Now, there's no guarantee the Marlins are going to win that Met game, but they're winning 2-1. They're still up in the top of the 9th, and they only have to get 3 outs, which would make them tied with the D-backs. The Reds and the Cubs at 82 and 78 are a game and a half behind the Marlins for the last playoff spot. And even the D-backs, they're 2 games behind. So I can't see a scenario, I don't think, where the Marlins game on Monday is going to not be played, because right now they'll either be tied with the D-backs and maybe they'll go on the what do you think? They go on the tiebreaker then, Joe? They wouldn't play it? Or would they play on Monday? And if the Marlins win, they're probably the 2. And if the Marlins lose, they're probably the 3. Now, again, they have 2 more games left, as do the Reds, as do the Cubs, as do the D-backs. So the D-backs, Marlins, Reds, and Cubs all have 2 scheduled games left. And the Marlins have that weird 3rd game that, again, they're winning 2-1 in the 9th inning. And they're still up when the rains came. I turned it on at like
That's
midnight.
crazy.
It was midnight. It was still a rain delay. I was like, yeah, I'll watch this game if they started at midnight in a downpour, but they didn't. So that's the NL wild card. It's very weird. But as is the American League, I'll just give it to you quickly. The AL West, the Rangers are in the lead by 1 game over the Astros and 2 games over the Mariners. And that's going to affect the wild card because the Rays are like the Phillies. Well, they're +9. The Phillies are +6, I think. But the Blue Jays are second, and they're up a game on the Astros, and the Astros are up a game on the Mariners. So it's just very weird. And it's not going to be determined until Sunday night, I think, and maybe Monday night because of that Marlins game we talked about. But I agree with you. The Phillies don't want to play the Marlins. They'd much rather play the D-backs.
Fine, let them screw up their pitching staff, and they play a Monday game, and Tuesday they're the 3 games at the bank this week. So yeah, it should be interesting.
Just a couple of other baseball things quickly. I think Acuna is the MVP for sure. Olsen just hit his 54th home run, and he's got like 136 RBIs. It's the most RBIs ever by a member of the Milwaukee Braves or any of the Braves, the Atlanta Braves. That includes Hank Aaron. The previous record was held by Eddie Matthews. So I give him tremendous credit for that. But what Acuna did, now 40 home runs and 70 stolen bases, is unfathomable. Nobody has ever done that. And for all the 40-40 guys, 40 homers, 40 stolen bases, nobody has stolen more than 46 bases. and Acuna has 70 or more. I think he might have 72 now. I think he had a couple the other night. So what he's done, don't get me wrong, Olson's been great, but what Acuna has done is just off the charts. I think he should be the MVP.
He's been. Imagine them winning the World Series without him a few years ago. Amazing.
Incredible.
It's like the Nationals without Bryce Harper. By the way, did you get? I just want to get your thoughts on the Angel Hernandez. Did you see that they were really
easily the worst check swing call in the history of baseball?
Thank you. That's exactly what I said. It wasn't even close. And usually on the replay, it always kind of looks like either it's very close or it looks like he might have gone around. Not even Harper's taking off his equipment and he looks up. Is like, what?
It was unbelievable, but he's a terrible ump and has been for years. I don't even know what to say. Why a guy like him has a job as an umpire must be hard to get rid of these umpires.
So strong.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was one of the most egregious bad calls I've ever seen. Bad.
You know how I feel about umps, so I'll just leave it at that. All right, let's go back to the college game. Colorado's been box office, again, I think they're like the 93 Kings when Gratz went there and it became a place to be and be seen. They got rappers. They still got Ralphie running around, a live buffalo, and they have all kinds of, the Rock is on the sidelines and game days there. They got their comeuppance in Eugene last week to Oregon. Dan Landing's speech, I thought it was kind of funny. They're playing for clicks. We're playing for wins. 42-6. They're actually at home today against Lincoln Riley's team. Lincoln Riley. Yeah, I said that right. Yeah, I'm sorry. What's that? Yeah, they're playing USC.
Playing USC, right?
Yeah, USC at home in about an hour. It's 11 o'clock Eastern time. 22-point dogs to a 4-0 USC team. As the clock struck midnight on this Coach Prime Cinderella story.
Well, I'm not the biggest Deion fan, except he's a great football player, pretty good baseball player. But he's already, and I think he's right. So I jumped on that bandwagon probably too quickly. But he beat TCU, 17th in the country. Colorado State is always a big grudge match. He beat them. But I think now, when he said the other day, I don't know how this has come into the lexicon of America in the last 2 years, but I'm taking receipts. I'm getting receipts or whatever. Deion said the same thing. Robert Saleh said the same thing. I don't quite know what that means. I got the receipt that you said I'm no good, so I'm going to prove
that's a new thing. That's a new,
Right. But I think Deion is right, because I think top-notch players are going to flock to him, especially DBs. If you're a 5-star DB, cornerback or safety, it seems to me you're going to Colorado to learn from the best. Right. And I don't know if his son's going to stay another year, because I think he's eligible for the draft. And I think in 2 years, they're going to be a top team. And I think it's going to be because everybody wants to play for Deion. I don't know if that's the right move, although I think it is for the defensive backs. But I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in 2 years, because he'll have all his guys in place by then. And he's done it with smoke and mirrors now. He's done it with a bunch of, I don't know if they're D2, but the historically black colleges and universities. People didn't think. And I remember in that first game, I think it was, they were killing TCU, and one guy turned to the other guy and said, "So this is Division I football." But they also don't have their best player, because he got sucker punched. Or
he's out bowling with Henry. You saw that, right? They went bowling this week together.
I did not see that.
Oh yeah, they talked about it, and Hunter was cool with everything, and so was Henry. Again, I'm having real trouble. I think I have early onset something or other. But yeah, they went bowling together. It was all over Twitter, and it was Hunter won, but they both contributed to a charity, and it was good stuff. It was definitely good stuff. But I am with you on that. Now, I don't like teams that look ahead. I'll do it for them. Penn State's on a collision course with Ohio State in 3 weeks. Ohio State barely gets out of ND with that crazy win last week. But they did win. I'll give them credit. It was a fourth quarter win of the first year quarterback. I know he's a junior, but right down the field, 3rd and 19, down to the 1, and they score with no time left, 1 second left. Penn State hasn't turned the ball over in 26 quarters. It's pretty good. That's like awesome. What is that? 6 games? That's 6.5 games. Pretty impressive. Their turnover margin in that time is plus 17. They're 4-0. Manny Diaz really has that defense going. They're Northwestern today, 27-point favorites, but I don't know how much you watch of them. I cover them, so I know them a little bit more intimately. They look like they look different, like they're more focused. They don't have that lingering doubt. Oh, we got to play Ohio State. Can we beat Michigan? Blah, blah, blah. They look pretty focused. I can't see them looking ahead, and I predicted they'll split with one of them and end up in the college football playoff. I think this team is for real this year.
I think you're right, but I'll defer. You're covering them, so you're on them every day.
Yeah, I think Penn State, they moved up to number 6. Notre Dame dropped out of the top 10. And Georgia, I love Georgia. They've done some good things for me in the last 2 years, but no one three-peats these days. I'm sorry. Their run will come to an end soon, but Notre Dame at the Dukies tonight at Cameron Outdoor, and that's where game day is. And Duke comes up with a big win over Clemson, and Clemson apparently isn't Clemson at least this year anymore, but Duke's played some ball, ranked 17 in the country. Can they pull off a win over ND tonight at home?
I think they have a chance. I'm not sold on Notre Dame. I like the coach, and they're better, but I'm just not sold on them. I thought they should have won last week against Ohio State. I know it was crazy at the end, but
the quarterback who's actually played not like 2 medical redshirt years. He's actually played 6 years. I think he's older than Marcus Will. I think he's older than the head coach.
It's the COVID thing, right?
It is.
No, he's like that guy who almost broke Pistol Pete's record. He played
that's right.
5 years.
That's right.
Well, it is what it is.
Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. Well, could be a good day to sit around and watch some ball. Before we go, we do an RIP sometimes if unfortunately some guy passes. I know this guy gets talked about in Philly a lot because he was like a tremendous third baseman, thought of as, up there as one of the great ones of all time, but I think around here people think Mike Schmidt is. I personally do, and I'm being objective. I think Mike Schmidt might be the best third baseman of all time. Brooks Robinson died this week.
Well, I don't know. I know Mike Schmidt was a lot better power hitter than Brooks, and I think they're probably the 2 greatest defensive third basemen. I don't know. Is it Arenado or somebody who's won a ton of Gold Gloves at third is playing now? I think so. But the thing that got me at Brooks Robinson in 1970, when the Orioles won the World Series, and that was the series that really made him a nationally known superstar because he made some of the greatest defensive plays. You still see him today. He's playing deep at third. He's 5 feet in foul territory, and he's throwing guys out. It was just unbelievable. But what people forget, that World Series, he hit 429. So he really turned it around. I don't know if a third baseman has ever had a greater World Series than Brooks Robinson in 1970, but a class guy all the time. He played in 9 postseason series, and he hit 303, which was much higher than his lifetime batting average of 267. So he was a guy who would rise to the occasion. But the 70 World Series was just incredible, and that was his coming out party, if you will. So I wouldn't say he's better than Schmidt. I wouldn't say Schmidt is better as a defensive third baseman. He was obviously a better power hitter. But I think those will be the 2 that if you had an argument in the barn now and you had guys who really knew, I think those would be the 2 that you would argue about. But I don't think there's a winner there. I can't say other than Schmidt's power. But yeah, what he did on the field was incredible. And, I think he's 86 when he passed away. So, that's a good run. But yeah, very sad because apparently a great guy off the field is, he was a great player, but even a better human being. I'm not making much of that. That's how he was. But Yeah, Brooks Robinson passed away, was an unbelievable third baseman for the Baltimore Orioles forever. I think he played 23 years in the major leagues.
That's a long time.
Yep.
And the O's came out of nowhere a few years ago. They were one of the worst teams in the league. They win the AL East. So we got baseball this week. We'll talk about it in a few days after the weekend. We'll probably be talking about the preview because we do another podcast on Tuesday to wrap up week 4 of the NFL season. And then we do another Friday or Saturdays, and they appear on YouTube or Steve's Facebook forum page. Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas, you can check that out daily. Also his videos on westchestercountypost.com, also on YouTube, my Facebook page as well. Follow me on Twitter at JoeStaszak975 or on Instagram at JoeStaszak4799. Great stuff, Steven. Great seeing you. Have a great weekend, and we'll be in touch.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too, pal. Appreciate you watching, folks, and have a great weekend. Be safe. God bless.